the water was on the boil. So things were kind of set up for them.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah. And then while they were warming up, Gloom and I go out and unsaddle their dogs and get them set up. So it all worked out pretty well, except...
Uh-oh. There's always an exception to these things. What is going on? Except...
Richard had a problem.
Richard was on the other team?
He was on the other team.
Okay, he's the leader of that team. He knows they're his dogs.
Yes.
Okay, he had a problem, yep.
Yes, with his balaclava and his beard.
Oh, I wasn't expecting that. I was sort of going, he might have had a thorn in his foot or something like that.
Thorn, no.
Okay, so his balaclava and his beard.
Yeah. Now, balaclavas, right, you wore them in winter.
Yeah.
And they did help. But the thing is, with your breath, they would ice up.
Now, that's the one over your mouth, is it? To come over
Yes,
there?
right over your mouth.
Yeah.
And your nose too, if you wanted to.
Yeah, the typical picture of Mawson, the actual explorer, with the balaclava over his head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in winter, you use them all the time.
Yeah.
But you had to, every so often, you'd sort of move them across your face, otherwise they'd freeze to your beard, which most of us had, or even just to your face. And that could be a bit of a problem. So
Obviously it was today.
And so it was.
Yeah.
Richard had neglected to loosen it up from his face, and by the time we got to the hut, he had this great big chunk of ice hanging off his face, attached firmly to his beard.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very extraordinary thing to think about. You know, it's one of those things you can't imagine unless you're there.
Little problems like that you wouldn't think of happen down there.
Yeah.
So poor Richard, we're getting stuck into the stew and having cups of tea and
You can't even
relaxing. And Richard's leaning over the stove trying to melt this block of ice. So we gave him suitable sympathy.
Of course.
Yes.
I bet you. I'm surprised you actually didn't make up a song about it.
I don't know why we didn't think
harmonica out.
that.
Yeah.
I don't. We did do that sort of thing, but did neglect it.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So we gave him the sympathy. We laughed.
Oh.
Yeah.
And the dogs did too. Go.
So Richard got very frustrated, and he came up with a solution.
Yeah.
He grabbed his balaclava and went, rip. It worked. It parted from his face.
Yeah.
Trouble is, some of his beard did as well.
His face did as well.
And that hurt.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I suppose you probably pulled some skin off as well.
Yeah, a bit of skin.
Yeah, a bit of skin.
Yeah.
Because couldn't you just snip it off? I suppose that.
No, because it's ice.
Yeah.
You try snipping through ice, and then
Yeah.
who brings scissors with them on a dog trip anyway?
I don't know. Haircut. You know, beard trim.
Well, you could use one. Yeah.
Yeah. Leave it alone. So that was the interesting thing. I just as you pulled up saying, you know, most people grew beards. Was that intentional, or is it just because you couldn't be bothered?
Bit of both.
Or you know, because there's a sort of style of people that don't have beards, don't like beards, and yet, you know, I've never seen you with a beard actually ever.
Oh, I've got a.
Yes, but that's because you can't bother shaving.
Yeah.
I shaved this morning, everybody. That's fine. I was prepared. Yeah, sorry. Did they have a generator? Electrical generator. So no electrical power.
It's all heating and everything came from little gas stoves.
Okay.
Or
Yeah.
kerosene, I think they were.
Okay,
Yeah.
just that's a. The other thing is, do you have to bring extra supplies to resupply that caravan for the next group?
We probably did. I just can't remember, but that's the sort of thing we would have done.
Yeah. Okay. So we're up. We had a lovely night's sleep. Not.
Yes.
Well, I suppose it's not as noisy
Not near as noisy.
because you're not on the sea ice, so you're not getting that constant crackle.
Yeah, you did. The dogs broke into the howls every so often because that's.
Was it a full moon? Was it a full moon? Or they just
Doesn't
singing?
matter. They do it anyway.
Okay. They're just singing to each other.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
But,
So
yeah.
great cacophony.
Yeah.
Oh no, sea ice. Oh, instead.
And you had the constant howl, the wind, but no, all that was just background.
Yeah.
Yes, we had a good night's sleep,
Good.
and next morning came the big adventure.
Okay, so how far from the island, Macy Island, to the Rookery were we looking?
It's about 5 miles.
Oh, so it's
Not
not. So it's like a nice staging point.
Yes.
You get there,
That's
have a
what
nice
it's used
night,
for,
and
exactly.
get a full day at the Rookery.
That's exactly what it's used for.
So.
I just might mention, just as an aside,
Sorry.
Macy Island. Macy was named after a guy called Lem Macy, who in those days had been down. I don't know how many times he'd been down to the Antarctic, and he was actually the OIC of Mawson the year before us. So we had a little bit of overlap with him.
Okay, so you got an island named after
He
him.
got an island named after him, and he was very well known, very popular. And when they had their final farewell for him, everybody was in tears from the previous year.
Which is not a good idea. Not a good idea in Antarctica because the tears freeze.
Yeah, it was rather emotional because he knew he was fairly old at this stage. He knew he'd never get down again.
Yeah, that real wrenching of knowing that this is the final one.
Yes, exactly.
But wasn't that the year that that guy got almost beaten to death?
It was.
He sort of let it go a bit, then didn't he?
Well, we can't blame him for that.
Okay, so that's why it's called Macy Island. Okay, so we're ready to go to see the Rookery.
Yes. So we head off, all's good, and you wouldn't want to read about it.
Okay.
Nothing went wrong.
Oh, what? No. So I have to reset that one. Sorry, people, because this is Phil Walter. Everything happens to him. But this time, nothing. Had a clear run.
The weather was better than the previous day, which was in turn better than the day before that.
Mm-hmm.
Clear run, dogs behaving themselves. They knew where they were going. Luckily, again, because we didn't.
So, Dan, we're going to the Rookery. Okay, boss.
Just about.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's a very short trip. Really,
Short trip.
5 miles, nothing.
Yeah, it's nothing.
Yeah.
As opposed to 2 days to do 30 miles.
Can you see the Rookery? Are you sort of just driving up to it? Can you smell it? Can you
I
hear
knew
it?
you'd ask about smell.
Yes, I know, because I'm obsessed with the smell.
Yes. It was like this. Imagine icebergs everywhere. Spectacular icebergs. All sorts of colours. We're heading into it. And then you see this narrow strip of black along the base of one of the icebergs. And that's our first sight of Auster Rookery.
Because black is not something you see much.
Not much.
In Antarctica, because everything's white or bluish.
Green or blue.
Or, shades of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Seeing a black line.
Jet black.
Yeah. So in the distance, you're seeing this thing coming up, and it's just this black line growing on you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it was like. And then you get to a certain stage, you start to hear them. And then we pulled up about half a mile short of the Rookery because we had a dog team.
Yeah. And all the dogs go.
Well, I think they knew what they were supposed to do and what they couldn't do.
Yeah.
But we were leaving nothing to chance. We stopped short. Well, penguins being curious, they're just as likely to come up to the dogs. So we strapped them down thoroughly, checked all their clips to make sure they're all thoroughly secured. And then we left someone to guard the dogs, so 3 would only go at a time to the Rookery and the 4th person would guard the dogs.
So it's just rock, paper, scissors. You're sucked in, you have to stay with the dogs.
Yeah, or something like that.
So when you pegged them down, you put a big stake in the ground.
We did stake it down as well as left them attached to the sled.
Yeah.
And checked every single clip and made sure that thing was solid.
The dogs are still dogs. You cannot let them go ape,
That's exactly
go crazy
right.
into the Rookery. Otherwise, you're gone. You're in trouble.
You would be in big trouble if you let that happen. Yeah. But you wouldn't anyway.
You can't go and have a yahoo and let the dogs go and have fun. Watch.
You very much don't have a yahoo when you're at the Rookery.
No.
Because, as you say, you're in a wildlife area, and you got to respect it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Penguin Island here, you get vandals going over there and things like that.
Yeah.
Well, at least that sort of thing never happened down there.
Yeah. Okay, so we're down to the Rookery. You're half a mile away, and you got to trudge in. You obviously got cameras and
yes,
everything that you brought with you.
Yeah. So our 2 tasks were basically take lots of photos, movies if you had the equipment, and try and count them.
What?
Yeah.
I mean, trying to count penguins is hard enough. Just there's 1,000 of them. No, there's 2,000 of them. Oh, that's enough.
We tried different ways. You'd say, well, there's how many in that little area? How many of those areas?
He's bloody moved.
And they're moving all over the place. It couldn't be done. It absolutely couldn't be.
I mean, who cares how many blooming penguins there are?
Well,
there are 2 million penguins. Who cares?
I think it's really a case of are these rookeries decreasing in population?
How could you tell?
You can't.
Are they dead ones lying around the place? No.
Well, they were.
Plus, the interesting thing about the rookery is it's not just one penguin species. There's birds, there's flying birds there as well who are preying on the babies.
Not at this stage.
Okay.
Because we're in midwinter, don't forget. Yeah. There's no other birds in the Antarctic environment at this stage than emperor penguins.
Okay, because my assumption is that there was a cacophony of different
Well, that
species.
comes later.
Okay.
But at this stage, no.
Mm-hmm.
They're the only wildlife in the whole of the Antarctic as emperor penguin rookeries.
Now, they're with babies, aren't they?
Yes, they're breeding.
Yeah. In the middle of winter, what?
Yeah. Now, at this stage, when we got there, there's sort of maybe half, 2/3 of the eggs had hatched. and the eggs will sit on it's all the fathers.
Yep.
Sit on their feet, and there's a roll of blubber over the top.
Like mine.
And that, yeah.
You'd be great at it.
Yeah, okay. Now you're distracted.
Oh, sorry. I distracted you. All right, okay, take me up.
So that's where they incubate their eggs.
Yep.
By the time we get there, that's well done. The females have already
hiked off
to the ice edge to feed.
Right.
And dad's there left with nothing. They can't eat anything. They got to, you might say, just about feed off themselves and the birds when they hatch their chicks. And so you'd imagine over the period of the summer they get pretty haggard before their women get back.
Mm. So just another thing, do they feed the babies, regurgitate to the babies while they're sitting there, once they've hatched?
Yes.
Because you'd have to hold that food.
Yeah, they turn it into internally some sort
of mucus.
Yes. Yeah.
It's like a porridge, but it's not only chunky. You'd have to have a fairly reasonable capacity, plus you're living on your own blubber.
Yep.
And that stomach's not being digested, so you're making the porridge for the babies as they grow older, and they eat a lot.
Yeah, well, that's why those dads get pretty gaunt by the end of the season.
Mm. So you were seeing them as the eggs were starting to hatch, or that's when you got there in August?
Yeah, it was a hatching time.
Yep.
So some had hatched, some hadn't. It was interesting, the birds, the way they approached you. The Emperor penguins, they're black and white like all penguins, but they had this yellow flash of colour across their chest that makes them look pretty good, actually.
But they're the biggest penguins, aren't they?
They're the largest of all penguins in the world.
Yeah, so they're quite hefty. I mean, what did you say? They're probably about 40, 50 kilos or something like that?
I don't know. I never picked one up, but yeah, they'd weigh a lot.
Yeah, because Lynn was saying they had to actually wrestle some of them to do some sampling of them.
We didn't wrestle penguins.
well, that's what they said. We had a couple of days. Okay, so you're walking into this thing, and things are up to your chest almost. And do you still walk through the rookery, or do you just stand at the edge?
No, we walked through. Now, you couldn't do that much walking through because at midwinter they're huddled close together.
Yeah.
But even so, you could sort of weave your way through different spots, and they might be clustered, huddling together. But by and large, all the birds were clumped up in one spot, which is a pretty fair area because a lot of them. And I sort of guesstimated there looks like there'd be several thousand here, but I've read that there could be 5,000 to 7,000.
Yeah, in that one cluster.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're just sitting on the ice, the sea ice.
Yep.
I mean, how do they stop themselves from being blown off the ice when you get a blizzard come through? It's sheer mass.
They're surrounded by these large grounded icebergs. That's why they chose.
So there's like it is a shielding. It's like breaks the wind up and things like that.
It's still very windy.
Oh yeah. But what another thing is, it shows their natural instinct and understanding of their environment means that they pick a place, and apparently they've not really moved from that place in a long, long time.
That's right. As far as I know, to this day, they still use the same location.
Yeah.
So, and the birds, they had their own characters. Some would ignore you and just go about whatever they're doing. Others were curious and followed you around. Mm-hmm. But one of the most intriguing were the ones who would come up and pose in front of you because they wanted to show off their chick to you.
Mm-hmm. Oh, so it's be on their feet and they're coming, hey, there's my baby.
Yeah, and this little head would poke out. And that's where you try and get photos of that. It's so cold that I tried to get movies of it, and it's all out of focus.
Maybe they thought you were a female coming back with the food. Say, hey, it's your turn.
Yeah, it could have been.
And what sort of sound was it like? What's the chatting?
Yeah, the chattery sound, and it was pretty loud when you're in amongst them. Mm-hmm. And you asked me about the smell.
Yeah.
Well, at that time of the year, there isn't much smell, but there was enough.
Because it's frozen.
Yeah,
it's exactly. Frozen solid poo.
Yeah, and it's all brown around the rookery, not white snow.
So you're trudging around going...
Yeah. Well, it's not messy to tread over because it's frozen solid. Yep. But there was a little bit of a smell because there was so much of it. So
it's a heaving mass of animal life.
Yep.
Are you seeing penguins moving in and out of the rookery to, hand over to the wives that he's got to go off and get some food?
The wives all come back pretty much at the same time. Later
Oh, so it's like en masse.
Yeah, so at this time it's 100% males, adult males.
Yep, yep. And babies.
And the babies would be 50%.
So you did some semi-scientific work. We count them, and there's 1,000, 2,000 of them. So, you came across dead ones, obviously dead ones.
Dead chicks.
Yeah.
A lot of eggs that didn't survive, and they're just lying around until the skewers get back.
Well, that's what I was thinking, the skewers, because, the impression you get is the skewers are just hanging around to take the...
Well, they do, but not at that time of the year.
Yeah, where would they go? They go up to the sub-Antarctic islands?
I'm not sure, but that's possibly where they go.
Mm.
So, yeah, as I say, there's only the emperor penguins. There's no predators.
Did you spend a day there or 2 days there or...?
No, we were there for, I don't know, 2 or 3 hours, something like that.
Is that it? We've finished now. We've got rid of the smell.
Don't forget, days are short.
Yeah,
You haven't got all that time, and by the time you get out there and you've got to get back to Macy, he's only had so much time.
Yeah.
Now, the other two, Richard, with his frostbitten chin, and Bruce...
Oh, you didn't say he got frostbite. That was you missed that bit. He'd ripped his beard off. Now he got frostbite. Okay.
Yeah, well, he didn't know it at that stage.
No.
He did later on. But anyway, they left a bit earlier, and Gloom and I stayed until we'd used up all our film, and then we had shot off to Macy, met up with the others.
Oh, so they can set it up and get the stew on.
Yeah, I can't remember if they did or not. Probably they did. And then we settled in for the night, all nice and relaxed. And
So you think you'd had a good day? I mean, down
We'd had a good day.
shooting film, taking photos. I mean, I'm surprised you didn't bring your easel, because I've seen some of your beautiful pictures.
When I first got there, I thought, I'll try doing some sketching. So I went outside and quickly learnt you only had seconds before your fingers
your hands, froze it off.
So I thought, I'll put some gloves on and try it.
No, you can't do it.
And snap the pencil.
Yeah.
So then I resorted to I went up to the glaciologist's hut, which is high in the station. I looked out the window, which is pretty clean, and did a sketch from there.
No, but it would have been a lovely stage picture for you to put your easel out, and then the penguins behind you and the guys taking a photograph of you guys doing that whole... You could probably do an animation of that. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, it would have been a good stage thing to do, but no, I never did that.
Well, damn. The person who was staying with the dogs, were they relieved and allowed to go across and do their photos?
Oh yes, we swapped around,
Okay,
so everyone did their stint.
Yeah.
Their watchman duty.
Yeah. So what was the reaction of the dogs?
From memory, they were far enough away, they were familiar with going out.
They didn't sort of bark and, come on, let us get out.
No, there was none of that. The main thing that the watchman would have to do was make sure penguins didn't stray too close to the dogs.
Like Franken penguin.
Yes.
Right, so we had a great day.
Yep.
And as you said, the weather's improving. You've had a great night's sleep. It's back home.
Yeah, I thought, right.
Now, tell me there was not a disaster on the way home. No.
In fact, quite the contrary. We had a good trip back. We'd learnt go further out from the coast, avoid most of the Strugi.
Yeah.
And we had a brilliant trip home. In fact, it was so much so that we broke the record for dog trips from between Macy and Mawson.
Which was?
4 hours and...
Wow.
4.5 hours, something like that. That's what we did it in.
So the trick is, if you get that sastrugi, is to go further out.
Yeah.
How did you work that one out?
The wind is mostly katabatic winds, gravity-driven winds coming off the continent.
Yeah.
So the further you go out away from the continent, the less they're going to be the trouble with the katabatic winds. The less the katabatic wind is, the less you're going to get sastrugi formed. And also less drift snow gets out that far.
So you just learnt that?
Yeah.
That's something you learnt that nobody told you?
No.
So that sort of local knowledge is not transferred?
Some stuff is transferred because you had veterans. Most years you'd have veterans from previous years that would have some knowledge. So we got back to Mawson, everything was good, and I thought, right, done that, been there. Now,
I've had enough.
That's it, now I'm not going to do that ever again.
How weird is that when you said you've had a great trip? I'm not doing that, I've ticked that off my list, I don't have to do that again now. What?
It was so hard. I mean, I was aching for 5 days afterwards, muscle.
Oh, well, yeah, we expect that, but that's the fitness level you guys are at, that you can run for 2-3 days and come back and go, oh, what did they do that for? You know.
Well, I thought, I'd done it.
Yep.
It was really, really hard, Yakka.
You got several layers, several rolls of film.
So, that's it. Never
again.
Never again.
No, don't need to do that again. All right, and so the second one.
Remember, you said there was 3 trips.
I think you did say there was 3
Yes.
trips. So this is the first one we've been through.
Yeah.
So the second trip, let's go. The Auster Rookery that you weren't going to do because you've already been to it.
That's
You
right.
went in August.
Yeah.
Now, when was the next one?
A fortnight later.
I thought in August.
Still in August. 3 guys wanted to go out and do the same thing.
Well, tell them to go. See you, bye.
Well, yeah, but they said, we don't feel confident going on our own because none of them were experienced on the dogs.
Oh, boo-hoo.
And they didn't know where they were going. And they wanted someone there who had some dog experience, who had been out there before, so knew how to get there,
Okay.
who had time available.
Oh, okay. And you just seem to be the guy who's got time available. How come you got time available?
Well, I didn't really, but I could always get Pete to stand in for me.
So what did they give you? Some bottle of wine or something?
Reluctantly, I eventually said, "Oh, all right."
Because
So,
you're the man of the dogs now. You know the dog man. You know how to handle the
well,
dogs.
Lars was a dog man.
I know, but you're sort of number 3 or 4 in the pecking order.
I don't know that there was any pecking order with it. So there was Cole Graham, who was a Sparky our year, electrician, for those who are wondering. He had never been out of the base the whole year, and he was itching to get out.
Wow, he must be mad.
Yeah, well, he's the only electrician who's never always work to be done.
Yeah.
So he thought, great, I'm getting out of here.
So we got 4 of us going. You, the lead man who knows where he's going. There's 2 dog teams.
Yep.
2 dog teams. So you've got Dan.
Yeah.
He knows you.
Using the same dogs.
Yeah. Okay.
Again.
And in the fan motion movement,
All the same.
what's the weather like?
Much better.
So you've been a veteran now.
Yeah.
Know what I'm doing.
So we got out there and again give the dogs their head to take us to Macy.
Were they fighting the first few hours?
There was a little bit of fighting, but not much. Yeah, they'd settled in pretty quick. Weather was all right. Days are a little bit longer.
Yeah.
And we had a good trip. We got out to Macy in 1 day.
Oh, that's pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah. Getting dark.
So that's a pretty good run.
We were happy to get there.
And you didn't encounter anything along the way because you're on the sea ice. Cracking, no.
Nothing went wrong on this
So
trip.
you did a really steep angle out.
Well, we went out a bit, maybe a mile or 2 out off the coast.
Yeah, and that just smoothed everything up nicely.
Smooths everything a lot, go a lot easier.
And the fact that you knew where you're going. And there's no maps.
No.
But I would assume you'd take a radio with
Oh,
you.
most definitely.
You know, do a schedule.
Yes.
We're here.
Yep.
Okay.
We kept in contact with the base all the time.
All right.
Yeah.
Because that's one of those funny things, you know, you need to have some sort of network. So
You
can
had to have that because things can go wrong.
Yeah.
And seriously wrong.
Okay, so Macy, like I said, you set up, have a nice evening.
Yep.
No rude songs about each other, about anybody falling off the sled,
Yeah,
breaking.
there was Cole Grant and Graham Ackerman, the glaciologist.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, he'd love that, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
New dawn, lovely day. I suppose the next day's quite nice, isn't it?
It was?
Yeah.
Yep.
And so you drive into this, like this fortress of glaciers, glaciers
Again,
all
yes.
around, and the glaciologist just going, oh my God.
His background was actually engineering.
Well, he'd just be in heaven, wouldn't he?
Well, we all were actually. It was fantastic out there. But now the weather was somewhat better. Days are a little bit longer. You approached the rookery. There was a bit of a surprise for me.
Oh, a veteran.
The
He
surprise-
wasn't there. They were all gone.
The surprise was how much those chicks had grown and had changed.
And you're talking about 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Yep.
I was, wow, that's amazing. And you even saw that the emperors have this habit of the chicks, they would herd them around, a whole group of them, and 1 or 2 would just herd them around.
So it's like a school, a kindergarten.
Exactly like a school. There was a little bit of that going at that time. Not much because I was still very young.
So we're talking about these things about what?
The chicks,
Yeah, so
they'd
about...
probably be, let me see, 6 inches high, something like that. So
Oh, okay,
They
so-
did vary
Okay.
because they hatch over a period of time.
So you get this slightly older one who's had a growth spurt.
Yeah, there was a bit of a variation in size.
Did they have 1 or 2 or 3 eggs?
I think if I remember right, but don't quote me on this, that they'd hatched 2 eggs but only 1 survived. I think that was the case, but I'm not 100% sure on
Yeah, because that would be a thing about the population in terms of it's a static population or going down because you've got 1 chick, 2 parents. You know, the population would be declining.
That might be, but they do this every year.
Okay, so the chicks are bigger and they're in school.
That's right.
They're in
yeah.
penguin school.
Yeah.
Emperor Penguin School, which is very high class.
And the size of the rookery had spread out quite a fair bit because it was a nice day and they didn't have to huddle together. And the chicks are growing a little bit. So, the wider area.
So, you still approach it exactly the same way. The dogs have to be pegged out, locked in about a mile, half a mile away.
Did all that.
So, was the smell getting stronger?
I can't remember.
Because you said it's actually getting a bit warmer. I mean, slightly.
Well, when we say warm, it's still approaching minus 30.
Minus 30, yeah. That's so, minus 30 degrees Celsius.
Yeah. So, the smell would still be
subdued.
Very subdued.
Mm-hmm. And were you getting any other animals like the skewers?
No, we're still in midwinter.
Okay, so they're not moving in and to attack. Any camera damage you did? Did you put a tear on the camera lens that seized it up?
That didn't happen on this trip.
Because that's quite an interesting phenomenon that you just can't get your head around, that a teardrop can seize a mechanism.
Or what commonly, you might get a drip off your chin where a bit of ice has melted. If it gets on that camera, it'll be another half hour before you can use it again.
So were you putting them into your?
That's what I do. I put it into your pouch and let your body warmth try and thaw it back out.
Yeah. Now, would he go off and look at the glaciers, because you've got this, this fortress of glaciers around, and like you said, the colours would be extraordinarily.
We were all looking at that. I mean, you had this rookery and this amazing backdrop. You imagine, spectacular. Doesn't begin to describe it. So it's amazing.
And I suppose the other thing about that sort of spectacular thing is it's actually very visible from a long way away, so the birds can home in on it.
Yeah.
That make it a very unique place to spot.
It's a unique place, all right. Yeah.
Just as a side, how far off the mainland would it be? Would you say that was? Because I know you said they're
maybe a mile or something like that.
I might have to look
not 100% sure, but something like that. You're a bit of a distance off the coast.
And you would have had glaciers on the mainland that would have channeled those icebergs into that sort of environment.
I think it's just because icebergs are passing through all the time in this area. The seafloor would be just such that larger icebergs would get grounded, thoroughly grounded.
But it sounds like they're permanently there. It's a permanent grounding of those icebergs.
Yeah. It couldn't possibly be permanent, but it could be decades for all I know. The same icebergs will be there.
Because I mean that would influence where the actual rookery is,
That's
another thing about the rookery being there for so long, is has it moved over time?
Yeah, not that I'm aware of. I don't think so. It's governed by the shape of the seafloor, and which governs where those icebergs ground themselves, and then where they ground themselves governs where the rookery is.
Yeah, because that's what you said when you drive into Mawson. You've got that roadway of your icebergs on the side.
Iceberg alley.
Iceberg alley,
similar thing.
Yeah. All right. So the chicks are getting bigger. Yep. They're getting louder. Now, what's the difference between the parents' sound and the chick sound? Is there
like most the chick? Yes, and the parent, much deeper.
Have we got a sound effect that we can play with it on that one?
I'm sure we will.
Okay. So a lovely day there. A lovely night at Macy Island, and then a lovely day taking photos, pretending to count them, and really involving yourself with a purely wild animal who has no fear of humans, in their natural state, and go, wow,
Wow, was it? Well, the days are still fairly short.
Yeah.
So back to Macy for an overnighter.
And did somebody bring some bottles of extra stuff, to have a bit of a nice drink at the end of the day?
Cannot remember.
Cup of tea and a
we certainly had cups of teas and coffee. And
now, tell me, is it international roast?
You are really straining your memory cells there, I'm afraid. Anyway, we overnighted and went back just much the same way.
How boring is this one, Phil? The dogs aren't even fighting much now.
Easy trip back, relatively easy.
Were they howling?
They always do that.
Okay, I just thought it was that, when they're out on excursion, a bit of a howl.
Yes, they do that.
Oh.
And we got back, all good. I thought, right, now...
So did you use the same route out to avoid the speed bumps?
Yeah, and you do that coming back.
Yeah, no, so it's one of those things that's just part of the culture now. Aha, we've worked out there's a better way to get around.
Yep.
You know, and the dogs didn't tell us, so we've got to learn it on the
Stupid
hard way.
dog.
That's right. Well, they seem to know. And basically, like you said, you're very lucky because you've got dogs on autopilot. You just press the button, go home, and they go, righto, boss.
Yeah, it's the same heading to Macy Island. It's just, they knew they were going, you didn't have to concern yourself.
Yeah.
And heading back is exactly the same. And when that base comes in sight,
It's
you
like,
can see
yippee!
the pace picks up. And
So you get back and you have to do the same old empty everything out, redo the dogs, pat the dogs, feed the dogs.
yeah, normally people will come and help you with those sorts of things when you got back to base, which is good. Successful trip. Right, now I've really done it. Won't ever do that again.
That's it, done,
Yeah.
finished, I'm a happy man. Except